Last Thursday I went over the sound system that's in the booth that connects to these speakers here, right? And then I also went over the light board and how to set a cue and do all that stuff. You'll see that once I do the audio and re-record it. I do have a video that I'll upload sometime that I did separately of having the camera aimed straight down on the board, the computer board, the light board, where I show you exactly how to do the sound, and I've got sound on that. I'll post that anyway sometime, but the one from last Thursday I'll get as soon as I can. But I told you then that I was gonna explain more about sound and how it works and show you with the portable system. So this is a portable sound system, a PA system if you want to call it that. That basically is everything that you need is right here in one unit. So it clips together 3 different places. And then these just slide off. So this is a speaker. This is a speaker. And don't worry, it sounded rough, but these things are designed for that. That's why we have this. And then this is both your amp and your mixer. So this has an amp. So when you open it here, oh, no, this was about 500 or 600.
Really?
Yes, that's where I got this one. So you would have your speaker cables, and I'll show those in a minute. And then you have your power cable. Somebody want to plug this in? I can't see. So with this one, it plugs in here, it plugs into power, right? So then you should see lights come up if it's turned on. When this is running, you leave that cabinet door open because that's the vent is through there. Okay? So then on the front side, you've got all your different settings. So you've got for channel 1 or microphone 1, 2, 3, 4. And then these 2 are for audio in. So let's say you had a little MP3 player or your computer sound doing sound effects or music from it. You could bring it in through these RCA jacks, which nobody uses RCA jacks anymore, but that's what this had. So you would have to find the adapter for it. You could also just run, if it's from a computer, you can have the headphone out jack, so it's an 1/8 inch jack, into a 1/4 inch jack and just run it into one of the microphone things. So for each channel of the 4 channels for mics, you have the XLR, that is a standard 3-prong microphone jack. So if you're using analog audio, it's going to have XLR connection. You also have the standard 1/4 inch jack, which is like the old headphone jacks. Make sense? The difference is one is balanced and one is not balanced. So the XLR is balanced, the 1/4 inch is not balanced. And really what that boils down to is XLR is going to give you better sound than 1/4 inch. Although in some cases you're not going to be able to tell the difference, basically. Does that make sense to everybody? And really what it boils down to is the 1/4 inch jack has been around longer. XLR came along and made it much better, but they still kept that 1/4 inch because it was standard for so long.
I'm going to ask a really dumb question. Is this a light or a camera?
Camera. These are lights over here. We're not doing that yet. This is all, none of this is camera. This is all sound.
Yeah, I was assuming that was a light. That's why I was looking closer at it, but I honestly, because of the shape of the base at the bottom, I could not tell if it was camera or light.
No, it's a camera. That's a light. All lights in here so far. All right, so you've got these knobs. Remember I told you, you got your high, your mids, and your lows. And then you probably have, let's see what it says here. High, this one has high, low. then this is a monitor, and your pan. So there is no mids on this one. It's either high or low. And it's because there's only bass and tweeter. So you have tweeters, you don't have the mid-range speakers, and you have the low speakers, the bass sound. So in this speaker box here, there's going to be one little speaker here and one big one down at the bottom. Make sense? For your low sounds, your deep sounds, and your high-pitched sounds. So this pan is the pan from left to right, so that speaker to that speaker. And in some situations, the audio may be recorded on one channel or the other, or one side or the other. For instance, if anybody ever done karaoke?
Yes.
Karaoke, they'll have both channels, but if you pan it to the left, you may only hear the background music. If you pan it to the right, then you can hear the vocalist singing. But that's designed so that when you pan it to one direction, you can sing without the vocalist, so that it's you singing as karaoke. Okay? Now, and then this one here is your main volume for that microphone, up and down. The volume for the actual speakers are here, left and right volumes. Okay? Now on some of them you'll have a gain. Back there you have a gain. This one doesn't have a gain per any of them, so that's okay. The power switch is here. So I turn it on, you should see lights come on. So now it's on. So then if I put the speaker together, this one end, this is a 1/4-inch jack, standard headphone jack from back in the day. Now most of the headphone jacks are about half this size. That's the standard ones that you guys see for your computers and headphones for your phones and such. So one side plugs in here. The other side, anybody know why I'm doing it like this? Because I'm taking out all the kinks and stuff as I'm moving it to the other end. I could have just grabbed the other end, but then my cable would have been all wonky. That's the word that everybody was using the other day. So I look here, here's my speakers out. And again, doesn't matter which one you plug it into, although typically the one that says L is for the left, the one that says right, R is for the right. Do what?
Can I hook my phone up to it?
You have a cable?
Like an aux cable?
Yeah.
Where?
Do you have an aux cable? You're not going to play something stupid, are you?
Nah, I just want to hear something with bass.
Okay.
Serious?
Yeah.
Give me a second. I at least got to pick something that's going to
Wait, but do you have a aux cable with a 1/4-inch?
This is what you had. Wouldn't work?
No.
Darn it.
You have to have a 1/4-inch, unless you have the RCA. Because this one does not have 1/8 inch, so you're up the creek. Oh well, it was worth a shot. I do have that cable back there, but I don't want to go get it because it's hooked up.
I don't think this thing likes you right now. It's been going up, down.
It's because as I move this around, it does that. It's okay. You guys are the ones that have to watch it. Anyway, does that help with this? So in order for a sound to happen, sound is based on electricity. Electricity has to have a complete circuit in order for it to work. In other words, it goes through a cycle. Does that make sense? A complete circle. So, for instance, these lights. You have light switches on the wall that turn on the lights, correct? So what's happening is, as you turn that light on, you're completing the circuit. So there's a wire that goes from there to the power bank. That's these breakers in the back that have power coming into them. And then it goes from there to wherever the lights are, to each light eventually. Make sense? But as long as that switch is turned off or the knob is turned down, because they're on a fader, so they fade up and down. So as long as that's turned off, you don't get power. It's not completing the circuit. Once you turn it on, complete circuit. Make sense? Common stuff. Okay. Same thing with the microphones and sound. You can have a microphone, but if it's not going through power and coming out to a speaker, you're not getting anything out of it. It's just a prop, more or less. Does that make sense to everybody? You plug a microphone into an XLR cable that plugs into here. Now you're halfway there. Because now I've taken that microphone, which will transmit sound if it's got a circuit, complete circuit, and put it into a box that has an amplifier and power. But that power has to be going out somewhere. And that's the other end of the circuit, the speakers. Okay? But if I turn the volume all the way down here or here, I've canceled the circuit. That make sense to everybody? So that's how that all works.
I didn't mean to do that.
You did mean it. But that's how sound works. So no matter what, you have to have a microphone. The microphone is either wireless, which means it's a transmitter transmitting to a receiver, which will be plugged into the booth back there, into the rack. And then that receiver is running a cable into the sound system. And then the sound system, the mixer, is connected to an amp. The mixer and amp are both built into this one. But back there, the mixer is running back into an amp. The amp sends out to these speakers. Now, they could be that there's no amp. It could be that this system just brings in the sound and each speaker is powered. So if the speakers are powered, you don't necessarily need an amp in between. And in some cases, you can have a speaker that you could almost plug a microphone straight into. Much like a guitar and electric guitar with their little amp, because it's a built-in, it's a powered amp or a powered speaker. Make sense? It's just that with a guitar amp, there's other controls to adjust things. If you were to take a speaker and just run a microphone straight to it, you're not got anything to control volume or do any of that stuff, because it's not designed for that. Most of them aren't designed for that. And that's why you need the mixer in between. The mixer is basically your equalizer as well. So it's equalizing the sound of what's coming in, but you can have multiple channels coming in and it's mixing all of that together and equalizing it. Does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody good with that? Everybody understand sound more or less? So if I told you to go hook up a microphone, you could do that real quick? Nobody wants to try? Good.
Do we have to go in the back and hook it up, and just grab one out of there and hook it up to that? That's the one part where I'm confused.
Well, it depends on what you want to do with it.
Well, it depends on what you want us to do with it.
If I wanted you to hook it up to this, you just grab a microphone and or a cable and bring it up and plug it in.
So where's the microphone?
They're back in the booth. I'm not saying go do it now. I'm just saying if I wanted you to, would you do it?
I mean, I'll give it a shot.
I don't want to go get it because then I got to go sanitize it and do all that garbage.
Or you can drop like a sick rap verse while I'm at it, no big deal.
Okay. If you wanted to connect it to this, then it's a whole different way of connecting it. Because here it's easy. Microphones plug in down here where the XLR are, right? Back there, the booth, you can either plug into the mixer, which already has cables plugged into those slots, because back here along the walls you're going to find outlets where you plug in your XLR cable, and it's already got cable running around through all this conduit to the booth so that it's already set up. So in other words, instead of a jack being right there at the sound system, the jack is located conveniently throughout the building or throughout this. So for us, there's at least one or two jacks over here, and there should be 4 or 5 in the back room back there. And I think there's one at the back of the stage down below that we gave access to. You guys don't know it, but there is. when we built the stage. And then, of course, there's some in the booth as well. And there's a couple of mic jacks over on the back wall back there for other purposes. Okay? Does that help everybody? You will get opportunity to do the sound system at some point. I'll bring each one of you individually in there to set up some sound for some things, okay? Can't have more than one of you in there at a time though, because 6-foot stuff. Any questions about this?
One, can I take it home?
No.
Alright. You couldn't see my smile. I mean, you just like.
I still would have said no just because I had to have it on record.
So off the record, yes.
No. Can't be off the record, I'm still recording.
Just like change your tone for a second, you know.
No. No. So when you're wrapping your cables up to keep them from getting all tangled up, you need to do something along the lines of this. Let it freely roll, because you're trying to keep from getting tangles when you store these things and getting that kind of stuff to happen. And it may take you a little bit longer to do it, but do it properly. And you notice I'm not pulling tight on anything, I'm just letting it loosely go, because the last thing you want to do is pull on it and pull the cables inside loose, because then your cable's no good for you. So then once it's here, I can do whatever I want with it. And since it's going inside this box, I'll just do a quick, simple twist. There's actually supposed to be another cable. You want to unplug that for me? Please. Make sure you sanitize this. I'll get it later.
Okay.
I'll make sure it's sanitized. Everybody has to sanitize. Be careful. What are you doing? Breaking this chair?
Don't weigh that much.
Make sure that's nice and clipped. Pull this over. See how convenient this thing is? It is fairly heavy though, when all the pieces are together.
Pound total?
I don't know. 100? This one doesn't clip all the way. All right, so that's sound. Now let's talk a little bit about lighting. I went over the light board. I'll go over that again later with each of you individually. Possibly Tuesday. We'll see. Lighting is basically similar to sound in a lot of ways. Consider this the microphone. It's the light. Plugs into a cable, plugs into an amp. We call it a dimmer pack. That dimmer pack is then connected to the board, and the board tells it whether it has power or not. So the dimmer pack gives it power, but the board tells the dimmer pack yes or no. So it's your on and off switch. Okay? So this light is called a ellipsoidal. Ellipsoidal. This is a big light. As you can see, it looks big. It is, these were probably $600 or $700 each, all said and done. These are maybe $300 each. The reason why this one's so much more expensive, there may have been more than that. I'll have to go back and look. The reason is this ellipsoidal is actually LED. We have some up there that are not LED, they're the old style ones. The old style ones have an actual light bulb in them. Not like a regular light bulb, it's not the Edison bulb that you're used to, but it's a halogen bulb. The halogen bulb in those old ones are about $60 each. And they're rated for, say, 20,000 hours or something. They never last that long. And if you install it, meaning you take the bulb out, put a new one in, you cannot let the bulb touch your hand. Because the oil from our skin will make that pop so that the second you turn that bulb on, that oil heats up quick and blows the bulb. I've seen it happen many times, and I always tell people, either wear a glove, use some foam or something in between so that it's not touching. A cloth will work. Anything that doesn't have oil on it and it's not touching the skin.
So in other words, latex gloves would probably be a bad idea.
Latex gloves, probably, well, you wouldn't want to use latex gloves around them anyway because they may be hot. So you don't want something that could burn your skin,
Okay.
provided it's not cooled off by the time you change the bulb. So usually we wear leather gloves or something. It's just a common thing. Just wear leather gloves if you're dealing with those. Okay. But since these are LED, this should last theoretically a lifetime. The light part of it. The electronic part of it, that's a whole nother story. Who knows? But they're really cool. We've not actually had these turned on yet. I turned on some of those. So the difference is, instead of XLR, which is sound, the lighting uses what we call DMX 512. So DMX, instead of having 3 prongs inside that's shaped like this, it has 5 prongs, so it's more like this. So you have 1 here and then 4 more going across there. Okay? Because it's sending data both ways, more data than audio does. Audio sends data one way and then back down the other, and then has a neutral for the power part of it. Does that make sense? Because with a microphone, you only have to send data one way. So in theory, you are only sending it one way, but the sending it back is just making sure its power cycles through. But with lights, you're sending data back, back and forth. And with LED, it's even more so. So the cool thing about it is, DMX can also be 3-prong instead of much like an XLR, but the 5-prong is better, it's faster and works better. Okay. So basically the way this works is there is a bulb or an LED in here, up in this part, and it's actually stationed right here. And because it's LED, to help keep it cool, there's a fan in there. The old ones get really hot, they don't have fans on them. So if you were to turn on a ellipsoidal, one of the old ellipsoidals, that say are 1,000 watts or 750 watts, that's literally 750 watts. Those suckers get hot. They will burn your skin off if you hold it. You won't be able to hold it because you're going to be burning. So don't even try. LED, literally if I turn this on, I should be able to touch anywhere on this and it not be terribly hot. It'll be warm, but if I turn the old ellipsoidals on, you would not be able to touch any of this part of the light because it would just be too hot.
I'm interested in the C-clamp that's on the back end of it.
The C-clamp is to clamp it to the pipe so that it holds it up.
Okay, and I assume that you have an exterior, or not exterior, but an extra cable on those hooks in the front to kind of balance it out.
No? No? You talking about here? Here?
Yeah. that and whatever that is, that's not a hook.
No? You could use a cable system to kind of prop this. I don't know anybody that does that.
Balance it on a gyro or what?
Mm.
So it just hangs at one point.
Yeah, you hang this from the ceiling at whatever angle you need it, and then it just aims.
What about balance?
Balance of what?
Is it heavy?
Yeah?
So it should have two ends that probably weigh separate weight, right?
No?
So it would need to be balanced.
No? If I hang it up here and I tie it down onto that pipe, it'll hang just like this and I won't have to worry about it. I don't have it tight, so that's why it's going like it right now. But once I clamp this down to that pipe, it can't go anywhere. It's tight here.
So it's not going to end up doing one of these lovely numbers where just, whoop.
How?
I mean, it's only hanging by one point.
All of those are hanging exactly like this right now, and they're all aimed a certain direction. They don't need, because most of your weight's here. Most of the weight's here. This is a lot less weight over here. So it's kind of balanced anyway because the weight's down under it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So all you need is one connection. It does have this for the sake of doing that if it needed. I don't know of any of them that's ever been done that way. As long as this is tight here and this is tight and all these are tight, it's not going anywhere. It'll hold its position until you tell it to move somewhere else by loosening it and aiming it. Yeah. That's when we start talking about focusing the lights. That's when you'll get into that. So there's an LED or a lamp in here. And then in here, where these shutters are, these are called the shutters. So in here, there is a bell shape. So it's literally shaped like a bowl that is metallic on the inside, and it's glass. Most of the time it's glass because it has to be glass to hold the heat. And then what it does is that lamp shoots through that bowl because there's a little hole there for it. And then it goes through and it bounces around inside there. And then there's a lens in here, somewhere in this area right here, that's just basically like eyeglass lenses. It's a piece of glass cut to a certain degree. And for this one, it's a 19 degree because that's what it says to right here. 19 degree angle. And the idea is that when the light hits, then it bounces it at the angle we want it. So you'll see a beam of light come out and it'll be a circle or light that aims, but it's designed to throw from a certain degree angle a certain distance. Make sense to everybody? And you can shutter that by moving these inward, and basically what you're doing is just like a camera, you're shuttering the light down so that it closes the light out. So if these were pushed all the way in, all four sides, theoretically either no light's coming out through this, or it's a pinhole of light. Does that make sense? Now on the old lights, if you were to do that and leave it too long, it's going to get extremely hot up here because now that heat can't escape. You can also focus the light by moving this lens further in or further out. Got it? So just like on a camera, you got the focus so that it's in focus or out of focus. In other words, things look fuzzy or look clear. Same thing with this. The light can look clearer or fuzzier or softer, depending on what you're doing with it. So if I ever say soften the light, I'm telling you to move the focus one way or the other. And that's just done by this nut right here. Got it? There's another one on this side, but usually you only have to move one. You also have this here. This is a gel frame holder. So what you do is you take a piece of plastic gel that's colored and you put it in here. And there are thousands of colors to choose from. And so if you want your lights to look a certain color, that's what you do. So if you want it to look blue, get some blue gel. If you want red look, get red gel. Typically speaking, with lighting, you do what we call a 3-point light. So you have 3 lights. Give me a second as I move this. So you would take 3 lights, one from a 45-degree angle up here, and one from a 45-degree angle here, and either straight down or from behind, coming down on one area. So if I wanted to light the area I'm at right now, I would bring the light from over here and over here to light this, and then I'd have the down light. It's the same principle for photography or videography, basic principles of light. And typically for stage, what we're going to do is say this light on this side. On stage, we don't necessarily call it our key light. On videography or film or photography, we might call it that, meaning that's our main light, that's the brightest light. It's not necessarily that this one's brighter for us. It's just that this light on this side, because we're lighting a lot of areas, this light's going to have a certain color gel in it. So every light from this angle on each area is going to have that same color gel. And typically we use what's called bastard amber. That's the actual term. And it's a very light orangish color. Okay? And the reason for that is because on stage, when you light it up, you want that look. You don't want me to look like white like his shirt. You want me to have some color to me. Okay? And that's the typical color we would use. This light on this side, we're probably going to use what we call a no color blue. It's going to be some kind of blue. Typically it's a no color blue, and that's the actual name of the color. And it is extremely light color blue. I mean, you couldn't see a whole lot of color until you put it on a white piece of paper or something. Okay? And it's very thin. These gels are very thin. And so what's going to happen is that amber and that blue coming down on me, you're not going to see, oh, amber, blue. It's going to come together and actually blend in and make a nice color. Does that make sense? Then the one from behind is probably going to be a lavender or a purple color, and that's going to be the one from behind. And again, that main light there is to cut shadows out. Okay? And typically those are the 3 colors used. There are variations on those colors, and for different types of shows you may want other colors. But if you're going to light an area, you're going to usually light it with an amber, a no color blue or a blue, and a lavender. Okay? On film you would not do that. On film you're just going to have either a white light or a yellow light from each one of them. But you're going to have one light that's going to be brighter than the other one, because we're going to create shadows, because it's more important on film to have a little bit of shade on one side, because the camera can pick up more detail than what our eyes can from a distance. Does that make sense to everybody? It's pretty cool. You're also going to have, so you're going to have your 3 lights, and then if you're going to fill in areas in between the different areas, those are called fill lights. So I'd have 3 lights. So if, let's say I had 5 areas across the front. I could do this whole stage in like 5 areas, just so you know, because it's not very big. But let's just say we had 5 areas across the front, and I'm in the center area. So area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't matter as long as somebody labels it. Okay. So if this is area 1 and this is area 2, and I'm in area 3, then we want to have a fill light between area 2 and 3 and area 3 and 4. That covers, so that as I walk across stage facing the audience, my face never goes into a shadow. That's the ideal situation. So you use fill lights to come down, and they can be straight across or they can be straight down. It doesn't matter where they're coming from, as long as they cut that shadow out. And that's their primary goal. And they can either have a gel in them, no gel in them, a certain color gel. It all depends on the lighting designer and the director on what they're looking for look-wise. Does that make sense to everybody? Chances are it'd probably have like a blue or something in it so that they can use it for in-between scenes. Typically we use blue light for scene changes. So in between scenes, if they have to change the scenery, they'll have a little bit of blue light on stage so the actors or the crew can see what they're doing. Otherwise, a pitch black stage, you cannot see what you're doing, where you're doing it at. Okay. Believe me, if I put we see these windows on these doors, all 4 of them. We've got panels that we can put inside those doors to hide the light. If I put those panels in and I turn the lights in here, it would be pitch black in here. You wouldn't be able to see. You'd see some light streaming in from around those things, but it wouldn't come far enough to see what's going on stage or for you guys to move around much back there. So those are fill lights. And then there's a bunch of other lights. I'll get into those later. We don't use all of those because we don't have the capabilities here for those. We do use not 3-point lighting. We do what we can with that. It's actually 2-point because we don't have the 3rd yet. Now that we have these, we can add that at some point. But we do fill lights as well. These lights, because they're LED, these are really cool. So this is a cable to give it power, because they have to have power. So in theory, I could plug this into the dimmer pack to get power, but it's not to give it power to the light. It gives it power so that it has power, but that dimmer pack's not going to turn it on or off, because you still have to have a DMX cable. But the way this one's designed is the DMX cable doesn't just go into the dimmer pack up there. That DMX cable actually plugs into the light itself. So I put the DMX in, and then I go out with DMX to the next light or to the next dimmer pack. So in other words, this works not by being plugged into something else, but by being plugged in sequence with something else. Does that make sense? So the light has to have power so that it knows, so the board can say, oh, it's got power, I can turn it on or off. Got it? So I've got to get, for these to work, I've got to get some small DMX cables, some short ones, to go in between. I have a few extra DMX cables, but they're like 50 feet long. So that doesn't really help us when I only need them maybe 10 feet, 15 feet. And I only have like 4 or 5 of them, so it's not enough. There's 10 of these lights, so I'll need at least a dozen cables. These are called Fresnels. This is a Fresnel. This is a cool light. You know why it's so cool? Because I said it was. And this is not like a regular Fresnel. I wish it was. Actually, this one's not actually a Fresnel. It's shaped like a Fresnel, but this one, according to the name, is a par. In other words, it's a par can, much like these right here. The 2 right here above Iona, those are par can. Well, that one is. That one's not. Basically, it's like a coffee can with a light in it. Does that make sense?
I've got one question.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have seen that, right? Okay, so you have 3 of these, or, well, they're not those lights, but you have 3 of those lights there, but then you have 2 of the small ones, the big one there. Why is that?
Just whatever show was used last, that's what we had to use.
So there's no specific strategic reason, it's just specific to whatever show it was.
More or less, yeah. So we have par cans up there, and we have ellipsoidals, because it probably wasn't used. And since then, well, that one, this is aimed straight down, is one of these. We just haven't used it for a show yet, because I just got these. These just came in during the summer, so they've not been used for anything yet. I started hanging some of them, during the summer. Kadarius was in there.
I'll be right back. I gotta
He
make
helped. But you have par cans like these, like this one right here, the one directly above Iona, that's a par can. They're basically, it's a light and there is no focus. It just puts a beam of light out. Okay? This is a par can, but this par can is shaped a little bit more like a Fresnel. The difference is because it's a par can, this is just a beam of light. A Fresnel is going to have these shutters on it just like this, so that I can shutter that light in and out wherever I need to. And it's going to have a small focus on it. This one does not. But that's okay because mostly what we need from the front are just beams of light coming out. Make sense to everybody? This one as well is an LED. So this one will not get as hot, but will put out as much light. And the cool thing about this one, not so cool thing about this one, these cannot be used by themselves. So you got power just like every other light. And actually, I'll take it back, I'm wrong. This can be plugged into a dimmer pack and used just like any other light. If I want to put it in sequence like this one has to be done through DMX, I have to get a special adapter, which they sent me one just to tease me. And it's basically an Ethernet port to DMX cable. So if I was to get a bunch of those, I can daisy chain. In other words, I could get rid of those dimmer packs and just have DMX cables connecting every light, and then assign each one of them to a channel so that I know which one. Does it make sense to everybody? Which we may do at some time. The other cool thing about having the DMX packs, the dimmer packs, is that they also provide power for each light. So there is that. All right, any questions? Any comments? Anybody got any concerns about anything yet?
I do actually have a slight concern, and this is more along the lines of a personal thing for myself. So my attention span is incredibly short.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed.
You haven't noticed?
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So good. And no, my attention span is incredibly short. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go back and review this stuff once I get home because
That's fine. That's why I'm recording it.
yeah, a lot of this, I'm not trying to focus. It's like I'm stupid distracted by everything. And I know like you got like an X amount of time you got to fill in, so you have to stretch things out.
Well, it's not that I'm stretching. I'm trying to enforce certain things into you
That's fair.
as well.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to retain all that stuff in such a like almost a 3-hour class. Just about.
Yeah.
It's kind of
It's
hard
a long
to retain
time.
all that. Like if I sit there and I watch.
Hey,
20
this
minutes,
could be worse. This is typically 3 hours 2 times a week.
You know, if I sit in front of a video for 20 minutes that explains the parameters and the functions of these products, then I'd be okay. Stretching it out to 3 hours and my whole head is like, oh god.
Except, if you really sit down and look at it, I didn't spend more than 20 minutes on these. And probably about the same amount on that. It's just that everything's being one right after the other.
That's fair.
Yeah. And yes, it does look like it's a long time because we are filling up a space of a long time. But I'm adding multiple things as we go, not just one thing constantly throughout. So I will end this recording here because this is at the end of the lesson.